Today we're gonna compare the cameras on the Samsung Galaxy S20 versus the iPhone SE. And this is pretty unfair because it's a budget phone versus a full flagship phone, which the Samsung has 3 lenses on the back and the SE only got 1. Alright, this is the low light test of the front facing camera, and out of my experience, the best for video on Android, it gotta be the Samsung, and I actually want to see how well it can stack up against a budget iPhone. Starting off with portrait mode, the iPhone SE only works if there's a face in the picture. On S20, it works on anything, on people, pets, things, objects, whatever. Now, one thing I found out is that wearing a mask works on the back camera, but it does not work on the front camera for the S20. I tried multiple times, and it only works if I took my mask off. So far, out of all the phones I've used, when Samsung said it needs to find a face, it really meant it. And also, the S20 does have a wider option for the front-facing camera if you're taking a picture with a buddy. Front-facing HDR, definitely Samsung S20 has it hands down. The iPhone SE is basically overblown. One con about the SE is that you can't do portrait mode on objects and pets. And a pro for the S20 for me is that you have 2 focal lengths, so you can actually zoom in if it's too far, and it does give you that compressed background look like an actual portrait picture. So far on SE, if you want to get a blurry background on an object, you gotta move up really close to get the camera to naturally do it. Now for everyday situations, it's obvious that the S20 is gonna be the winner here. You got the ultra wide, the regular wide, and the telephoto lens. So you're really all set for a lot of situations. So zooming all the way in with the SE, it's obvious that it's not gonna be as sharp as S20, but it is decent enough just to get a memory shot, but I wouldn't really post it on Instagram or anything like that. The S20 also has a 30x zoom, which is not the best or clear picture in the world, but it's good enough to use it for something to see across the street or something far away. Now Samsung is more well known for their contrasty, super saturated pictures. When you see a lot of the greens, red, or blues, it's really gonna pop out on the S20, and sometimes it may look too much or too fake, so it really depends on how you like your pictures. If you're leaning more towards the natural looking pictures, then the iPhone SE is more closer to that than the S20. But I gotta say, the colors on the Samsung really makes the pictures ready to be uploaded to social media right away. Alright, before we move on to low light pictures, I want to say that the performance on S20 in really low light areas, it's really sluggish. On the iPhone SE, it does have the latest chip, so it's still pretty smooth. Yes, the shutter speed or the screen that you're looking at may be a bit blurry, but moving around to switching different modes, it's really smooth. Also, taking a picture on the S20 in low light areas, it takes like a whole second to actually load up or finish taking a picture. Same goes for the night mode. Now for the low light pictures, I'm going all in with the Samsung S20. Yes, the pictures may be a bit too saturated or less natural looking, but overall the camera quality or the picture quality is better. That's if you can do with the sluggish performance in low light situations. And this happened to me a couple times where when I hit the 3x or the telephoto lens, it freezes up for a bit and I would have to wait for maybe a good 2 seconds until it loads up. And at that point, I'm just waiting for it to crash, and most likely I would have just missed the moment. Now the Samsung S20 does offer night mode, which the iPhone SE does not. And the problem I'm going to mention right now is something I mentioned a lot in the S20 comparisons, is that in the night mode, it takes a while for it to ready up. And what I mean by a while is that it's like a quick second, it's not too long, but I'm so used to the night modes on the Huawei phones, the Pixel phones, and the iPhone 11, and that just happens instantly once you're in that mode. So using the Samsung night mode, yes, that quick second does feel like a while. Now moving on to video, we're shooting an ultra wide angle lens on the Samsung S20, and this thing, the stabilization looks so smooth, it almost looks like I'm on a gimbal. Now for the iPhone SE, it looks like a natural hand movement. It's not too jerky or too artificial, so it's still not too bad. So the only bad thing about the iPhone SE stabilization is every hard step I take, you can see the micro jitters, and it really gets annoying because once I started to notice it, I see it all the time and I just pay attention to it right away. Now for the colors, it's obvious that the Samsung will have a more pop to it, whereas on SE, it looks a bit more natural. Now for fun, I also recorded with the telephoto lens on S20, and it's not too bad if I'm standing still, but obviously the stabilization is not going to be as good. Now for 4K 60, the stabilization on both phones look exactly the same. As I walk in each step I take, you can see the micro jitters happening at the same time, so as for stabilization, it's a tie for me. Now what's different here is the colors. On iPhone SE, everything looks a bit more yellow than the S20. I would say the S20 is pretty close to the eye right here. Now with this comparison is a bit different. The iPhone SE does have an option in the camera to shoot 4K in 24 frames per second. In a camera, the S20 does not have that, so for filmmakers, I guess it's a nice choice for them. And what the Samsung S20 has that the SE doesn't is 8K. Alright, so moving on to low light 4K 30. On ultra wide angle lens for the S20, it doesn't look too good at all, which I would avoid shooting at all costs in low light situations. But the stabilization on the S20 is still better. On the main camera lens for the S20, it's pretty good. There are some micro jitters, which is the same as the SE. I still gotta give the edge to the Samsung S20. On the iPhone, there's more noise. As I'm moving around, you can tell that it's more blurry on the SE, meaning that it's on a slower shutter speed. But for the natural looking colors, the iPhone SE is closer to the eye. On the S20, the grass is actually not that vibrant. Now moving on to 4K 60, I'm just gonna give it to the iPhone SE. The stabilization on the S20 looks like it's completely off. Where the Samsung wins on this is the exposure. So the iPhone SE does give a pretty dark image in low light. Now moving on to the final test, 4K 24 on the SE and 8K on the S20. The exposure still wins on the Samsung phone, but everything else like the noise, the artifacts showing up, the shutter speed, it just doesn't look too good shooting 8K in low light, so I would avoid it at all costs. It is not worth it. So that is my comparison with the budget iPhone SE and the flagship Samsung Galaxy S20. I think for the average person, the camera on the iPhone SE is good enough for Instagram, Facebook, like the social media stuff everyone does every day. Now the Samsung S20 is a powerhouse. It has a lot of things, a lot of features that the iPhone SE does not. So I think the S20 is better off for the photographers or people who is really into taking pictures. So they're the ones that actually will post their best picture on their Instagram. If you're the one that posts a picture of what happened on that day or some simple memory, then iPhone SE will do just fine. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please follow me on Instagram, give a like, subscribe, hit the bell, and thanks for watching.